The best solo class for ESO is now even better, with huge damage shields and so much health recovery that you literally cannot die in most situations. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here. In this video, we're updating our very powerful solo Magicka Sorcerer build for ESO. And I'm gonna just come right out and say it. This is the easiest way to play the game if you struggle with survival or doing damage, because this build does it all with an incredibly easy rotation, and we use health recovery instead of healing to stay alive automatically, no heals necessary. This is a huge update for the build where I've added even more damage, bigger damage shields, and even more health recovery. So if you've used this one in the past or you just want to try something new, this build is going to be amazing. So let's jump right into it. All right, everybody, here we are back on the Unkillable Magicka Sorcerer, the Infinity build, basically unlimited health recovery as well as sustain. So really easy to do damage and to stay alive on this build no matter what you are doing. Let's go ahead and jump right into things, show you how this build has been updated. And we'll start with the buff stats. So let's take a look at the character sheet here. 32,000 max magicka, 32,000 max health, 18,000 max stamina, crazy amount of stats. You can see also here our health recovery over 7,000 fully buffed. This depends on actually your amount of ultimate, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But you should expect anywhere from like 5,000 to 7,000. Spell damage is good, 4K there, 45% crit chance is really good. And check out those maxed resists. This build is super tanky, so it makes it very easy to survive anything. Of course, we are a Magicka Sorcerer, so you want to put all of your points into max Magicka there, 64 points. In terms of the consumables, I prefer to use Bewitched Sugar Skulls. This just gives you a lot of extra stats. They're all going to be useful on this build, health, magicka, and stamina. We use them all. And then you also get the extra health recovery, which is going to stack with all of our other buffs. So that's a very nice option. In terms of the Mundus Stone, we are going to be using the Thief Mundus. Now, yeah, there actually is a health recovery Mundus, so you can stack your health recovery even higher if you want. But I prefer the Thief. Since this is a heavy armor build, we do want to kind of balance that survivability with extra crit chance, since we're not using a lot of light armor. I think this is the best way to go, but you can play around with that, of course, if you want to. And then all these other stats, we'll talk about how we get these in just a minute. Other consumables that are going to be really helpful is actually your potion. This works perfectly on the Infinity build. This is a combination of health recovery, and spell and physical resistance. So I'll have the recipe, the ingredients for this over in the written guide. Link for that is down in the description and the pinned comment. But what this does is it maxes out our resistances, which also help with our health recovery. And you also get the major fortitude buff for this. So 30% extra health recovery. This is pretty much like the best potion you can run on this particular build. So like I said, if you want more info on how to craft this, check out the written guide. It is really, really good. And if you don't have this, then just a basic health potion is going to still give you that major fortitude buff. And you can get those potions basically for free from killing enemies. They're very easy to get. So that would be a basic option you can use there as well. Now, in terms of the race on this build, there are a couple of options which I think would be best. First, I think Khajiit is very nice. This is the only race in ESO that gives you a health recovery bonus. So the fact that this build is focused on maxing out our health recovery, Khajiit just makes sense. Plus, we also get a lot of extra max stats here, which is great. And then the Feline Ambush passive gives us bonus critical damage, critical healing. So all of these passives work really well on this particular build. Now, if you don't want to use Khajiit, I think that High Elf would be another great option. You get max magicka, you also get some damage reduction while you're channeling the heavy attack, plus some helpful sustain on your resources. So I think that would be another great option as well. But the race doesn't make a huge difference, so feel free to use whatever you have available. So that being said, let's go ahead and check out the gear sets next that are going to make this work. And if you saw my stat sheet earlier, you saw all the buffs that we're getting. That's obviously going to come from the Oaken Soul Ring. Since this is a 1-bar heavy attack build, the Oaken Soul Ring is really the best way to go. You get all of your major and minor buffs that you're going to need. So things like major sorcery for your spell damage, Major Savagery for the extra crit chance, Minor Protection for some damage reduction. You get your Major Resolve, that's your main armor buff. And of course, a very important one, since we are going to focus on that heavy attack playstyle, the Empower buff is going to make your heavy attacks do so much more damage. So this is really, I wouldn't say it's essential for the build, but it's going to make it so much easier that I do recommend you pick this up if you don't have it already. I'll have a guide listed in the description if you need that. I go through all of the different steps that you need to pick this up, so definitely check that out if you need this still. But that is our main mythic on the setup. But then, as I mentioned, this is a heavy attack build, so we're going to be using the best heavy attack set in the game still. This is Sergeant's Mail. This is a base game set, so it's very easy to pick up. It comes from the Wayrest Sewers dungeon. And the nice thing about this, why it actually works so good with the Health Recovery Sorcerer, is you actually get max health, and you get more health recovery from the 2- and 3-piece bonuses. So it actually works out really well on this build. Of course, you get some extra weapon and spell damage, which is good. And then once you get your 4 stacks of heavy attack damage, it's really easy to maintain this on a 1-bar setup. And this is actually the best buff you can get in terms of your total heavy attack damage. Typically, how I'm going to run this is with the Lightning Staff, and then Precise is going to be a great trait to pick up there. And then Shock damage is going to be important as well. This makes it much easier to proc off balance, which off-balance enemies take even more heavy attack damage, which is really good. But remember, since this is a 2-handed weapon, that's going to count for 2 set bonus pieces there. And then for the remaining 3 pieces, you can do the heavy chest here if you want. Got Divines with Max Magicka, and then just 2 pieces of jewelry. So the Necklace of the Sergeant, Ring of the Sergeant. Now you don't actually need to transmute these, since these come with the Healthy trait. That's going to give you even more health, which is not a bad thing on this build, honestly. But if you want more damage, then Bloodthirsty is going to be the way to go. I actually have Bloodthirsty on all 3 of my jewelry pieces, and then the spell damage glyph on all 3 of those as well. So that's sort of our offensive set, and then where we get really all of that health recovery, the rest of it, this is going to be our defensive set, which is another heavy armor set called Alessian. You can actually purchase this in Cyrodiil with Alliance points, though you do not have to. This is tradable, so you will be able to find this on Guild Traders. It's pretty cheap as well. It's not a very popular set, but it is so good for solo content because of all the defensive buffs that you get. And you get 2 armor buffs, you get a max health bonus, and then the 5-piece here is really interesting. This increases your health recovery by 2% of your total physical and spell resistance up to a cap of 1,320 health recovery. Now you can see right here, since I'm unbuffed, I'm only getting 1,120 health recovery. And this is where those armor potions come into effect. So with Major Resolve, I actually have Minor Resolve from being a sorcerer. You can see we're not quite at the armor cap yet, about 28,000, 27,000. But when I actually use that potion, that's going to basically max out my armor values, and then it actually maxes out the health recovery of the Alessian Order set. Everything's synergizing really well on this setup. We got tons of health recovery, we got max resistances, and the damage is still really good since you are a heavy attack build, and you have all the extra bonuses that you're getting from the Oaken Soul Ring. Like I said, this is a heavy armor set. You can run it anywhere on the body that you want. I've got the helmet here, got the waist, again, Max Magicka for the glyphs here, and then Divines for the trait if you can get it. That's going to leave us just 1 piece left over. Shoulder piece, you can make this with anything you want. Monster set would be ideal. I've got Slimecraw because, again, I do want as much crit chance as possible since we have a lot of heavy armor. It's going to help balance our damage a little bit. But if you really want to stack health recovery, do 1-piece Engine Guardian, a heavy Engine Guardian piece. That'll get you much higher health recovery as well. So that's the setup one more time. We've got Sergeant's Mail weapon, 1 piece on the body, 2 pieces of jewelry. We've got 5 pieces of Alessian on the body, and then shoulder of your choice here. I'm using a light Slimecraw piece. Light, by the way, is going to give us a little bit of extra penetration and crit chance, which is going to be helpful on this build. And then, of course, your mythic item, the Oaken Soul Ring. If you have any questions about the setup, what goes where, if you want to see alternate sets, check out the written guide. I'll have a lot of more information there for you to reference as you're creating this build for yourself. Okay, let's jump into the skills here. A super easy 1-bar setup, starting with our pet here. Summon Volatile Familiar. This comes from Daedric Summoning. That is the first skill that you get, and this is so good for solo content. It does great AoE damage, plus it's going to stun enemies after just a few seconds, a 3-second stun. So this is really good for crowd control and not just the damage. Remember that you can use this to stun during an ad wave or something like that to help you really control the fight. It's a great skill to use. Next up, Unstable Wall of Storms. This is going to come from the Destruction Staff skill line. Second ability here, and I do prefer to use Unstable. Since we are a 1-bar build, it's very easy to use this. You don't have to worry about, bar swapping or anything for this. So this does do more damage than the longer morph. Plus, you can cast this multiple times to actually get the explosion early. This is going to be great for clearing through enemies. If you're grinding experience, you're trying to kill things as fast as possible. You basically can alternate the heavy attack with spamming your unstable wall and do tons of damage. So here's what that would look like. Let me just use my pet as well. So wall, heavy attack. The wall's going to explode each time that I cast it like this. Plus you get all that juicy heavy attack damage. So this is really great for clearing out groups of enemies. Next up, Hardened Ward. This actually got a nice buff in the Necrom chapter. I'm doing about 17k damage shield here. So this is our basic protection tool, right? This comes from Daedric Summoning, by the way. That's the second to last ability here. So you can cast this in between your heavy attacks just to maintain your health. It's like adding an extra chunk of health to your health bar. In fact, when we add those together, it's about 50k effective health on the build. Plus, it actually shields your pet, so that's important as well. You want to cast this as much as possible. And again, you can just weave this in between those heavy attacks. Keep the heavy attack button down. Recast it, and you'll go into your next heavy attack. You can actually recast all of your abilities that way, and it's really easy to do on this build. That's your main protection tool, like I said. And then next up, especially if you're playing solo, you are going to want something to reduce enemy armor. The best option for that, honestly, is Razer Cow Drops. This comes from the Assault skill line. It's the second to last ability here. The reason why this is so good is it's AoE Major Breach. So you're debuffing the armor of everything in the area. Plus, you're slowing them down. You're doing some physical damage. So this is a great skill. Now, I realize you may not have this available, especially if you don't PvP very much. So a good alternate option, just in case you don't have that, would be Destruction Staff skill line, and then Elemental Susceptibility. This gives you the same debuff. It's actually free. Gives you some bonus status effects, but this is only single target. So that is the difference there. It's going to be still very good on bosses, or where you're dealing with just a few enemies at a time, but for larger fights, as I said, Razer Cow Drops definitely going to be the preferred method there. And then finally, again, this build is so simple, you guys. One more skill, a passive skill, to round out the build. Bound Aegis. This comes from Daedric Summoning as well. That's the last ability here. This is a nice buff for your max magicka, plus it's giving you minor resolve passively. Why is that good? Well, especially on this build, remember our armor basically equals more health recovery. So this is giving you, 3,000 physical and spell resistance. That's going to be stacking even more health recovery through the Alessian set, which is really good. And we don't actually get minor resolve from the Oaken Soul Ring either. So this is a really good ability to use just to keep things simple. You don't have to cast it, right? Because it's a passive buff that we're getting from having that slotted. Now this is flexible though. However, for example, for some more tougher content, you might think about slotting actually a heal here. A really good option would be Critical Surge. This is going to give you a heal up to once every second when you do critical damage. And that's very easy to do, by the way, on this build because we have some ground effect dots. So if I were to use that instead, you can see here's the buff. Here's my ground effect dots. And with the lightning staff, that can proc it as well. So you can see I'm getting over 6,000 health back every second or so, as long as I'm doing critical damage and those critically strike. It's a really good skill to have. Another great option if you want even more passive healing, you could cast this on multiple targets. It's going to be Structured Entropy from the Mage's Guild skill line. It gives you 1,500 health every 2 seconds, so not quite as much health, but it's guaranteed. And you can actually cast this on multiple targets, so you can stack this up pretty high the more enemies that you're facing. So that's another good option, but just to keep things really simple, if you want, I'm going to put Bound Aegis there. Finally, in terms of the ultimate here, Greater Storm Astronaut. This also comes from Daedric Summoning. This is a very cheap ultimate at 170 to cast. This does very good single target damage and an AoE sort of damage effect on the ground with the stun. So I will sometimes save this if I know like a big ad wave is coming, for example. I can cast this on demand, do a big chunk of damage right away, stun everything, and then it's going to give me even more single target damage as the fight goes on. So this is really good. So I definitely recommend that. All right, quick example of how the build and the rotation works against a world boss. I'm in the zone here of Rivenspire at Veilguard Tower. This is a really great test of any solo build. If you can handle this world boss, especially the adds that come with this fight, then you know your build is pretty good. So all we need to do in terms of buffs is just drop our potion, and then I'm going to start by casting my pet, put the Razer Cow Drops on the ground, our unstable wall, and then heavy attack, followed by a damage shield, and I just want to keep those effects down as much as possible. I'll go ahead and recast my shield, Caltrops, my wall, and my pet, and then just continue to heavy attack. And I'm waiting for the next add phase, which is going to be right here. So my pet died, that's fine. I'm going to recast the pet, recast my wall, block that attack, heavy attack here, try to get these adds down as quick as I can. Go ahead and redo my shield, my wall. Okay, so first wave of adds, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and rebuff the shield. I'm going to move over just a little bit because there is going to be another wave of adds in this area. Rebuff Caltrops, wall, shield. Here's that next wave of adds. I'm going to use my ultimate here. This is probably the hardest part of the fight. I want to make sure I stun those really quickly. Put down my dots. Use my potion. Here's the next wave of adds, and my health still hasn't moved, which is really good. Keep my shield up. Keep Caltrops down. I'll go ahead and recast the pet, see if I can get that stun off quickly. There we go. That's definitely helpful. Okay, one more healer. I want to finish this one off. So again, I'm just putting those ground dots on. I'm making sure my shield is up. That's going to let my health recovery just bring my health back to full. Go ahead and buff that pet one more time. Lost my pet, but that's fine, really. Fight's almost over. And there you go. You can see, versus one of the toughest world bosses, at least in the base game, my health barely moved. And I was able to keep good damage pressure the entire time, finish off those adds, no problem. But that is the basic rotation, how things work. If you need more help with that, make sure again to check out the written guide in the description and the pinned comment. I'll have everything written out there, as well as those alternate skills if you want to use those. Let's look at champion points here quickly. This build is a bit different than other setups that I've used, especially for heavy attack builds. So let me go ahead and explain these. Starting in the green tree, though, not much has changed here. This is typically what I recommend. So Steed's Blessing for the extra movement speed, Treasure Hunter, Rationer, and Liquid Efficiency. In the blue tree, we're going to start here with Thaumaturge and Deadly Aim. Deadly Aim does increase the damage of your Lightning Staff heavy attacks. Just the way that works, they kind of start as a single target damage, and then they get sent out to other targets via the Destruction Staff passives. So you actually will see a nice boost using both of these. As well as, of course, Fighting Finesse is going to boost our critical damage. And finally, probably the strongest one, you want to pick this up first. Weapons Expert gives you a 20% bonus to your heavy attack damage. That is definitely huge, so make sure you get that one early. And then I just want to point out, in terms of defensive stars, these are actually passives here. Make sure to pick up Preparation. This gives you 10% damage reduction at all times, so that's really powerful. Now, as far as the red tree goes, I would actually pick up Rejuvenation here. This is 90 bonus health recovery. This is going to get buffed by everything else that we have access to on the Sorcerer, so it actually is going to scale quite a bit higher. And then, of course, Boundless Vitality. We do want as much health as possible. And then for the final two, I do recommend Bastion here. 15% shield size is going to work really well with the Sorcerer Damage Shield, Hardened Ward. And then when I was talking about maxing out your health recovery, Strategic Reserve is a great way to do this. You gain 30 health recovery for every 10 ultimate you have. So if you have a full stack, 500 ultimate times 30 health recovery, that's about 1,500 just raw base health recovery stat that is going to get buffed even further by our passives and our potion and things like that. So you definitely want to use this to your advantage. If you're doing more difficult content, reserve that ultimate. Don't cast your ultimate yet. Let it build up to 500, and then you'll get that huge amount of health recovery coming in helping you to stay alive even easier. And then when things settle down in the fight a little bit, then you can burn your ultimate, get more damage going, and kill off enemies even quicker. So that's what I recommend there. As always, make sure to check out the written guide. I'll have CP breakdowns for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 champion points there. So no matter what level you're at, those should still be helpful to get you started. And then real quick look at the outfit style here in case you're curious. Most of these are light armor pieces from Balsonar. This is the Blessed Inheritor outfit style. All right, everybody, with that said, that's going to wrap up this update for the solo Unkillable Magicka Sorcerer build. And as I said, if you have any questions at all the skills, all the passives, all the champion points, as well as alternative options are going to be listed down below in the written guide, so make sure to check that out. If you guys enjoyed the video today or found it informative, do me a favor and crush that like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, make sure to check out our YouTube membership. We now have literally hours and hours of members-only content, including exclusive builds and guides, like our brand new Unkillable Arcanist build that I just released for our Tier 2 channel members. This has massive damage reduction, and self-healing, making it perfect for solo content like arenas and even veteran dungeons, using base game sets you can purchase from guild traders, so it's ridiculously easy to get started. Now, this is just one of over a dozen members-only videos you'll have access to, plus a members-only Discord and a lot more. So if that sounds good to you, just click that join button for more information, or check out our whole list of members-only videos in the pinned comment down below. Huge shout out as always to our channel members who keep this channel going. I could not do this without you, so thanks again. Thanks to all of you for watching this video, and I will see you around in the next one.